Welcome to another episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. This podcast was designed to let you know that you aren't the only one that took forever to get it together. So the rabbit hole that you have stumbled down will hopefully help you understand that just when you think it's over, it's only the beginning. Just because you were dealt a bad hand doesn't mean you have to keep it. Welcome to the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast.
And welcome back, you guys. This is another episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. This is your boy Terry. Now, normally I do video podcasts and stuff and send out clips and all that. But I think what I'm going to do in this particular series is just do a strictly audio podcast only, to where, hopefully you guys will go and look for it and want to listen to it, because I have a story to tell. I mean, I've told this story. This is my origin story. I've told it a few times before. But I've gotten a lot of new listeners since the very first time I did it. And sometimes people are just like, okay, who's this guy that I'm listening to? And why should I listen to him? And so I'm here to answer that question for you. I'm here to kind of give you some insight of where I come from, who am I, and all of that. And so we're going to get into it, because there's a lot of things that's happened, since I've been on this thing. So just to get it started, right? I'm 50 years old. Let me say that first. So that way, anybody can give me, any kind of old jokes, I go ahead and do that while you listen to it and laugh at it while you're on the road. But anyways, I'm 50 years old. I remember when I was a kid, and my first story, the first thing that I can remember is when I was 17, and no, I might have been 16, because I was just becoming a father. I had my eldest daughter was born when I was 16 years old. So it was before that. I had to be 15. Anyways, this is when I first found out that the man who raised me all these years, that he's raised me, this is when I found out that he was not indeed my biological father. He's my brother's daddy, but he wasn't my daddy. So at 15, I remember, I'm from a small town out of North Carolina. And, how small towns are, everybody knows everybody, and so that's what happened. Everybody knows everybody. And so we only had one high school, one middle school, and so there's this young lady that I had a crush on, bad, real bad, and I remember going to tell my mom one Saturday morning. It was a Saturday, and I'll never forget it, because it was hot, and my mother, always late. She'd always sleep in on Saturday. So I'll go ahead and sit on the side of the bed with her, and we'll talk and whatever. And, so I told her, Mom, I said, I got this girl, man, she's, I'm really feeling her, what have you. And she's like, well, okay, well, who is she? What's her name? Whatever. And I was like, well, this is her name, and she was like, oh, and she gave me the long dramatic pause. And she was like, you can't date her. And I said, well, why? Why can't I date her? She said, because, you guys share a father. I'm like, wow, okay, so wait. So are you telling me that the man that raised me isn't my real dad? And she was like, yeah, I hate to say it, but yeah.
Emotional damage.
Definitely came my way, because I had no idea that, I always thought that he was my father. I didn't think anything of it, But that is when life for me changed. And that's when life for me kind of a little different, because I was like, okay, somebody's lying, around the way. And I'm like, why is everybody lying to me? And I really liked this girl. So, of course, I had to backpedal and be like, I can't rock with you, because I can't rock with you, because I know that that we have the same father. So for many, many moons after that, I thought that this young lady's father was my biological father, right? And it was hard. At that point in my life, I was 15, 16 years old with a daughter. I really didn't know what I was doing, first of all. And now I'm thrust into fatherhood. And now I feel like I've been lied to my entire life because the man that raised me isn't really my father. Things between me and him changed because there was a level of respect, mutual respect that we had, or that I had for him. And once that came out, I was like, hey, you ain't my daddy, brother. You know what I'm saying? I could do it on, you ain't my daddy. Or whatever. That's kind of the attitude that I took. And it did not fare well for me. I ended up getting put out. I ended up getting put out of the house because of the disrespect that I gave him. I ended up living with my grandmother, who lived. Fortunately, she lived across the field from me. You know, my father had a mobile home, and in the little town that we lived in, and my grandmother had a trailer right behind us. So I just moved across the field to my grandma's house. At that point in my life, I was still in school, still trying to make it, just making all kinds of bad decisions, just doing crazy stuff, you know, not really being a father, not, you know, being the man that I needed to be. And as you listen to this series, you will see that was a running thing for me. I did that a lot because I did not know how to be a father. Because what happened was, right before all this news came out, I mean, I was never given the birds and the bees talk. So, you know, some people, they get that automatically. They get the birds and the bees. They get the, you know, when a man loves a woman type deal. I never got that. So I winged it. My first few years of being a father, I winged it. So I didn't know what I was doing. So I hurt a lot of people going forward. So I kind of muddled through, got in trouble with the law a little bit with the child support and all that, ended up going to court, and it was just amazing. But my mental at that point was I hated everybody. I didn't trust not a single soul because everybody's lying. My thought process was everybody's lying. And so I kind of disparaged my mother. Like I was really, really mad with her. Like, why would you take all this time? Why would you wait till I'm 16, 17 years old to tell me that this man is not my father? So that was my excuse for my bad behavior. Okay, notice that I said excuse. And, you know, and I made a lot of them. I made a lot of, you know, bad choices. So I made it through high school, graduated. You know, I went through not knowing what I was doing with my life. I don't know what's next. I was so confused. Like I said, you know, got a daughter, baby mama. She wasn't too bad, you know what I'm saying? But bad enough where they put the fear of God in me. Her dad was a very, very burly man, and he didn't play because of his granddaughter. God rest his soul. But it was hard. So I abandoned my daughter, you know, for the lack of a better term. I abandoned my daughter. And so I was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. So let me do something else. So I went to the military, which was a complete waste of time. I will tell you that. An absolute complete waste of time. I signed up with the Army National Guard, and I went in on a split bill. So anybody know anything about that? That is when you sign, like I signed up the summer of my senior year. I was employed by the government. I worked for the government. I went to drills. I got paid through the government. But then when I graduated from high school, then I went to boot camp. Boot camp's a funny story. It really is. So I did the first half and I got paid. It was fun. I mean, I went to drill. I didn't do shit. Excuse my French. I didn't do nothing because we weren't authorized because we haven't been through training yet. So we're just there, you know. And so I graduated from high school. And then I got my orders to go to boot camp. Now, my first duty station, of course, boot camp was in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Now, if anybody's watching this and know anything about Oklahoma, it's hot out there. And I went in the summer of 1993, before half of you guys that listened to this were born. 1993, I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And I tell you, the worst. I met some good folks, some folks that I caught up with on Facebook here just a few years back that I've been looking for. But with the boot camp, I'll give you guys If anybody listening to this has ever watched the movie In the Army Now of Pauly Shore, that movie was filmed at Fort Sill. Everything you see in that Army section of that movie in the beginning, that's what I went through. Everything. The buildings, the black senior drill sergeant that was in that movie was my senior drill sergeant, Adam Stokes. It was just that. So the military wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. I had a girlfriend back home, so I got homesick a lot. I had a picture of her in my helmet. So I took my helmet off. Anytime I took my helmet off, I would see a picture of her, and it made it worse. Right. So the military was just a bad situation. I'll give you a short story, one story from the military that'll make you laugh. Now, this podcast is going to be a series of stories, so just get ready for that, right? So one particular day, the platoon was supposed to go on a road march, and I didn't want to go. So I was just being lazy. I didn't want to go. So I told my drill sergeant that I was sick. So I went to the TMC, which is the health clinic, and they gave me some antidiarrheal meds and sent me back to the barracks. So I got back to the barracks. Nobody was there. They're still on road march or whatnot. So I get to the barracks and I realize, hey, I'm sleepy. But of course, you can't get back in your bunk and go to sleep. That's not great because if the platoon comes back and you're in your bunk, you really get in trouble. So I ended up going to sleep in the latrine, the bathroom. So on the shower bench where everybody would sit and wait for the shower, I went to sleep on that bench. Bad move. bad move. So I fell asleep and I must have gotten to a deep sleep. And I remember my drill sergeant coming in to the bathroom and him waking me up. And when I tell you, I ain't never in my life been screamed at as much as I was that particular day. He got me up out of the latrine. He didn't touch me because I think at that time the protocol was you can't really touch the cadets or whatever. So he took me into his office. Now, mind you, my MOS in the National Guard was 13 Bravo, which is field artillery, right? So of course, in his office, he had 2 artillery shells in front of his desk. Now these things are about 80 pounds apiece. You know what I'm saying? So what he did was he made me pick up one of those artillery shells and hold it and cradle it in my arms in front of his desk while he drilled me, right? So, of course, I'm weak. I don't know. What the hell? What am I doing trying to hold a damn artillery shell? So I had to stand there for 5 minutes holding this artillery shell because of what I went to sleep in the latrine. So he's told me, he said, "Little, put it down and you better not drop it." And what did I do? I dropped it. So I'm sure if you go back to the 13 Bravo barracks in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, on the third floor, you'll see that crack in the floor. After they haven't fixed it. If they haven't fixed it. And so he wasn't done there. So he took me outside, drew me for a little while in the sand with the sand fleas and the scorpions and all that jazz. And then he took me back inside of the building. Now, the entire battery was in a meeting with the battalion commander and everybody, right? So my platoon was there. He takes me to this meeting in front of the whole entire battalion, takes me into this battalion, tells the captain, "Hey, this cadet decided he want to go to sleep while we were on road march." And the captain was like, "Oh yeah, do what you got to do." And he drilled me in front of that battalion, the entire battalion. We talking at least 300 soldiers in there watching me get burnt up because I fell asleep on the train. So that was, life lesson. And at that point, at that juncture in the game, I said, you know what? I am not going to stay here in the military because of the embarrassment that I took. It's my fault, but it still was the embarrassment. So I thought of every single way to get out of the military, right? So I ended up making my way the rest of the way. I think I made it to week 6. Because what happens with the military, back then, I don't know how it is now, but back then, you did 8 weeks of boot camp and then you did 5 weeks of what they call advanced training, which is AIT. So I was in week 6 of boot camp. And I went back to the medical clinic, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this no more. No, I don't know what's going on. So they examined me, and it was like, we can give you a medical discharge, or you can, you have flat feet. That's what they told me. That's the excuse they gave me. Said you have flat feet, whatever, or you can get out. You have a mild arch, whatever. I said, well, if I take the flat feet thing, can I get out of here? And he was like, yeah, sure. They gave me a RE13, a reentry code 13 on DD-214, and let me go. Here's the bad thing about that. One thing about the military, I don't know if they do it now, but they did it back then. They will send you anywhere first class, right? But baby, if you don't make it, they put you on a bus. And that's exactly what they did to me. They threw me out of the military. That's the reason why anytime I answer any kind of veteran questions, I'm like, no, I didn't make it, right? So they threw me out, and they put me on a bus, on a Greyhound. It took me 4 days to get home from Fort Sill. And I said that was the worst experience ever. Just the worst. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about going to the military, don't fuck up. They're gonna throw you out, and they're gonna put you on a bus, and you're gonna be swimming like corn chips in depression. I promise. So don't do that. So I got home after the military, and life was just, oh God, I can't even explain. Just mistake after mistake. And when I was in the military, I had stole my mom's long distance card. See, back in the day, people who are listening, that are younger than me, probably don't remember long distance wasn't free. You had to get a card and call the card number, and then put in long distance number, all that. I ran the phone bill up to like $3,000. My mom was mad. I'm saying, I can imagine, she was pissed by the time I got home. And she was like, you ran the phone bill up to $3,000 and this and this and this and this and this. And it was tragic. I made a lot of dumb mistakes, man. And this is just the beginning. This story I'm telling you about today is just early on mistakes. It's like goofball mistakes, because I feel like I didn't have any kind of leadership going in. It was kind of like, I lived my life. Nobody really told me anything. My mom and dad, they beat this Christian moral into me. Everything's the devil. It's kind of like Bobby Boucher's mama, everything the devil, and so it was kind of like that. But I did learn some things. I took some things from it, but not very much, right? So once I got home, I tried to make some changes, but it didn't. It didn't really much matter. I ended up, at this point, I think I'm like 18, 19 years old. And this is when I go into my first marriage. And so I'm going to cut it off right here, right? Because those of you that don't know, I've been married 3 times. All 3 failed marriages. All 3 of them, my fault. But we'll get into that later down the road. So after I come home, I start making decisions, in between jobs, not knowing what I am really, really doing, fussing with my mom and my dad, just having a really hard time with life. So this is, I'm telling you, listen, if you guys stick around, I can promise you, anybody that has listened to this story before, they'll tell you how entertaining it is. And they'll tell you that I could tell a story like nobody's business. So make sure that you stick around. But I'm going to go in the next series, in the next episode, I'm going to go into my first marriage because that was a total mess. Well, I got a great daughter out of it, Brianna, but my first marriage emotionally was a complete mess. But we'll get into that in the next episode. So if you have enjoyed the first part of this, please, please, please follow the broadcast, follow the podcast on all podcasting platforms. Make sure you subscribe, share with everyone. If you have any questions, if you have any, about the podcast, please reach me at the Knucklehead Chronicles Podcast at gmail.com. I'll answer any questions from there. Yeah, but it's gonna be one hell of a ride. Again, I love telling my story because I feel like I wanna be able to help someone to not make the same mistakes that I did, because it's easy to do. It really is really is easy to make the same mistakes, bad choices, and then blame everybody else for your mistakes. So it's which what I did for many moons is I made the bad choices and the bad decisions, and I would blame everybody else. So, hopefully me telling my story again will help somebody not do it. So until the next episode, which I'm going to do very soon, I'll start being more consistent with, consistent with these because it's important. I'm consistent with these. So until next time, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Like I said, don't forget to share the broadcast. Follow the broadcast on all podcast platforms. I'm everywhere. Spotify, YouTube. You got it, right? Just follow, and stay tuned for episode 2 of my origin story. Again, you guys have a great rest of your night.
Thank you for listening. I hope I didn't fry your brain too bad. Come back through and give me another chance. You can listen on all platforms and visit us at knuckleheadchroniclespodcast.podbean.com. Until next time, in the words of the incomparable Jerry Springer, take care of yourself and each other.